Eat my hammer. We are First Geek 411, and this is our Thor Love and Thunder spoiler cast. With me, as always, from the Great White North, Shanine. How you doing?
Doing good. It's very roasty.
Oh,
Not very
It's
white
getting
right now, right?
getting roastier.
it's the roastiest. Then, from the land of Big Sky,
And treasure.
Chris Nicolay.
And last
How
best
you
place.
doing?
I'm good.
As I said
Maybe
at
a
the
little
top,
delirious.
but hey, that'll make it more fun. This is our Thor Love and Thunder spoiler cast. We are First Geek 411. You can find us on our social media as One Geek 411. You can join our Discord. Check out our email at 1stgeek411 at gmail.com. You can watch live Monday nights, 6:45 Mountain Time, be part of the post-show chats, and then find the videos over on our YouTube where you can like, comment, and subscribe. You can also check out our Redbubble store if you want any of that merch. So this is Spoilercast. There will be spoilers, but before we get into that, I want to know initial thoughts. What did you think in a spoiler-free way about the 29th MCU film?
Better horror elements than Doctor Strange.
What I was
Oh, oh,
um everything I really hoped for from a Taika Waititi Thor movie.
for me, I loved it. I laughed. We'll talk about some of the specifics later, but there's a joke that gets started at the beginning, and I was like, this is going to be the most annoying thing. And then by the end, I was still laughing every single time. And so I love this. I think it's like a ridiculous jaunt. And yeah, I don't know. I laughed so much doing this, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yeah. I was super tired from driving, so I was delirious when watching it, which I definitely enjoyed it more. I'm definitely not as can't be as critical just because my brain wasn't functioning completely. And there were times like because of this movie, I laughed out loud, so loud in the theater when everyone else was like, a little quiet, and I was just like, "Oops."
It's okay. You were just there to party.
It's true.
Speaking of party, Thor has opened with $143 million domestic and $302 million worldwide. It is the 12th biggest opening for an MCU movie. So definitely places it in that top half of those 29 films. If you had to guess, I did put a link in the show notes, but if y'all haven't looked, if you did have to guess, what are the two movies right around Thor Love and Thunder, the one that's above and the ones that's below? Because it blew my mind.
Wait, sorry, what was it ranking?
So it's the 12th highest opening weekend,
Opening weekend.
For the MCU. What do you think is the movie above it and below it in the ranking?
This is so hard.
I'll say both of them are sequels.
Civil War, right above. No, not Civil War. That's not what I'm thinking. Winter Soldier, right above.
So Civil War is surprisingly
Higher up there.
the 17th largest box office. So this movie opened $50 million more than Winter Soldier. Sorry, not Civil War, but yes, I looked at the right one, but I think I said the wrong one as well. So
I have no idea. Like, there's too many. And like, sounds
I
below.
don't know.
My brain.
Okay, so
you're asking.
so-
not the time, Cameron.
Not the
I
time for math,
explained this
everyone.
already.
not the time for math. So the 11th largest box office was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I thought that would be higher but
Yep. And then the 13th is Iron Man 2, which blew me away that it was that high up. But we all know where we were at the hype level leading into Avengers.
Don't forget,
as like
we're
the next
talking about
major one. But,
opening weekend.
right.
So like Iron Man 2, like there's a lot of hype for Iron Man 2.
Yes, there was.
How good it was a whole other thing. Yeah, like that's like the rewatchability, whole other question. Yeah. But a lot of us were there for opening weekend.
But yeah, so that just kind of blew me away. I think it's an interesting context for kind of how that works off. Again, it's basically you're measuring hype because, I mean, you do have initial reviews, but that's kind of it. Yeah, with all that said, we're going to start our spoilers. So if you have not seen Thor: Love and Thunder, and let's just say we're going to do our best not to spoil Miss Marvel. Let's just kind of throw that out into the void. I don't know where we would be with that, but let's try not to spoil that because as of recording, there's still one more episode of Miss Marvel.
Are there spoilers for Thor?
We're going to just not talk about Miss Marvel. Like, how about that?
I mean, I didn't make any connections between Thor: Love and Thunder and Miss Marvel, so I didn't think there was a risk.
Yeah, we'll have some risk. Yeah, there's some general Phase 4 questions and stuff like that later on, and so with that said, let's do Phase 4. Let's exclude Miss Marvel since it's not completed. So, but yeah, so spoilers start here. If you haven't listened or haven't seen the movie yet, mute this tab. Keep the video going so we get the view. Go watch Thor: Love and Thunder, then come back and watch this again so we get another view. Thank you, YouTube watchers. So, but with that, as we've been doing in our recent spoiler casts, we're going to do a quick stroll through the plot. We're taking this from Wikipedia because I was too lazy to find any other source. So here we go. And as always
what we do.
Yeah. As always, stop me if y'all want to talk about something specific that happened along the way. And so the movie starts with Gore and his daughter.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay. What do you have to say? We got Christian Bale questions coming up. So
I'm sure.
And so, got Gore and his daughter, whose apparently her real name is Love. I guess that's we'll get there. As they're in a barren desert, despite their prayers, she dies. And then Gore comes before his god, and who conveniently has just killed someone with the Necro sword in the most convenient plot point ever. And then the Necro sword comes to Gore, kind of like how Mjolnir comes to Thor, but and then Gore uses that to kill, I guess it's Rapu is the name of the god, and then vows to kill all gods. And so Gore goes on an off-screen killing spree as Thor hangs out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, chilling on this planet, just vibing, living his best life. He plants Stormbreaker, and then it grows roots because it's been there so long. And I thought that was an awesome touch.
Part of Groot, right?
It's made with Groot. Yeah. So it all makes sense.
It's still alive, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just an awesome touch that I just loved that it had.
And he flies off on it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. He literally rides it like a broom. Yes. And so yeah. So the Guardians are fighting this race of. They really struck me as the puppets from what's that show with the I can't remember the name of it now. They're the weird puppet things. They ride these Metallica motorcycles. We get Thor doing the splits at one point.
How did we get pod racing in the MCU, but we haven't seen it in Star Wars in a while?
Yes, we did get pod racing. And then Thor ends up fighting all of them. Not really sure what anyone else was doing at this point. This really made the Guardians seem incompetent, which, they kind of are. That's kind of their shtick. But Thor basically just does everything and ends up destroying the temple of the people that he's trying to help. So they call him Thor, god of destruction. They then gift him 2 giant screaming goats. And this is what I was referencing at the beginning, where I was like, this is going to be the dumbest thing. And every time we had the screaming goats, I could not have been more hyped.
I got over
did
it pretty
we?
fast. I did.
I was so excited. I don't know how they'll like fare in a rewatch, but oh man, I loved it. At the end when they run into the planet, I was like, oh man, this is the best.
But at the same time, I don't think they overdid it at all. Like they could have definitely way overdid it, but they kept it pretty tasteful. Tasteful goat.
Yeah.
Screams. Tasteful goat screams.
Oh, it was so good. I legitimately loved that joke so much. Okay, I'm gonna keep gushing about the goats if I don't move on.
I mean, I will say it did keep me from falling asleep during the movie, so that's
hey, there you go.
That's a plus.
Chris didn't fall asleep. We'll get to how many stars we would rank it later, but and so after this, Thor receives a distress signal for a bunch of gods that have been slain. We end up finding Sif, who is alive but has lost her hand. She's ready to go to Valhalla, but apparently if you die after the battle, it doesn't count. And so she has to get up and continue on with her life. And so she warns Thor that Gore's next target is New Asgard. And then meanwhile, we find out that Dr. Jane Foster has cancer, stage 4 out of how many stages though? And so she is trying to go through chemo and do all of that, and it's not working. And then Mjolnir calls to her, and she reads a book that then explains that Mjolnir was thought to have healing powers. And so she goes to New Asgard. And then we then find out that once Thor gets there, Gore sends these weird shadow creatures to attack. They try to and successfully kidnap all the kids there. We get the battle that was seen in a lot of the trailer, where Thor finds out that Jane is Mighty Thor and is here doing stuff. She's apparently been Thor for a while because people are very excited about her being there, and Valkyrie is all up in what's been going on. And so we also get the introduction of another very funny, consistent joke, which is the rom-com between Thor and Stormbreaker.
I do, yeah.
Where like that, it's very much like Stormbreaker is the third wheel between Thor and Mjolnir. And I thought that was amazing. A+ joke. The group decides that they need to thwart Gore, and they head to Omnipotence City, which is the home of many gods, to warn them and get help from the leader Zeus. We get an exposition about how Thor modeled himself after Zeus, because Zeus is the god of lightning and Thor is the god of thunder. And so I just love that this was actually referenced, just in terms of like, they know each other. They're friends from work. And so Zeus then gets mad that Thor is interrupting him. So Thor talks to him. There is a fight that ensues. Zeus destroys Korg's body, but we learn that the only thing that matters is his face and that he was fine. And so Valkyrie straps Korg's face to the back of her head and then keeps fighting. And so here we are. Eventually, Thor impales Zeus with his thunderbolt. And then they end up stealing the thunderbolt and escape on the screaming goat boat that they have. We also really get back into the relationship between Thor and Thor at this point. And then from here, they start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And they start working their way to the Shadow Realm, which is where they got to go to save them kids. They find celestial dolphins along the way, which is kind of weird. We get more rom-com with Stormbreaker because it can now open the Bifrost and isn't being finicky as long as it's somehow piloting the ship. So, sure. And so they end up finding out that that Gore needs Stormbreaker to open a portal to eternity, which will grant the wish of the first person to get there. And apparently no one's ever tried this. And so Gore overpowers the group, severely injures Valkyrie, and then they have to run away so that everybody can get healed up. And so it's at this point that we really find out the degree that Mjolnir has been sapping Jane's strength. We got a little bit of it earlier on before they left on this mission. And Jane is warned that if she was to become Thor again, it would probably kill her. And so Thor convinces her to stay. And then Thor goes to find Gore with the Thunderbolt that can apparently teleport people. I was not aware that this is one of the powers of Zeus's Thunderbolts, but okay. And so he heads to fight Gore.
It's MCU Zeus, though. So
yeah, MCU Zeus. And then we find out that Thor saves the kids, and then for a limited time only gives them all the power of Thor. And so we get the kids battling with whatever it is that they were holding at the moment with powers.
Bunny Girl.
Yes. One girl has a bunny stuffed animal that's like shooting lasers out of its eyes. And if this is not the most Viking thing ever, I don't know what is. Plot twist though, Jane becomes the mighty Thor again, comes in to save Thor, and then destroy the Necrosword and then end up in Eternity's realm. When Gore goes to make his wish, Thor, holding other Thor, asks Gore to revive his daughter instead of destroying the gods, which Gore ends up doing. And so then Love is back, now has some sort of powers. And then as Gore dies, he requests that Thor take care of Love. And then the children all return to New Asgard, where they are trained by Valkyrie and Sif. And then Thor is now back in possession of Mjolnir, and continues to train the people as Love continues to protect people as Love now wields Stormbreaker. And then in the mid-credit scene, we find out that Zeus is going to send his son Hercules to kill Thor, because Zeus is mad that people are more excited to see superheroes than the old gods. And then we also, in the post-credit scene, find out that Jane has made it to the gates of Valhalla, where she is welcomed by Heimdall. And so that is our rough overview of Thor: Love and Thunder.
That's Wikipedia.
So, yeah, a little bit added for me because it did not mention the goats.
Oh.
So I had to make sure that we added that in because I needed that. And so, what was y'all's favorite part of the film? None of it.
This was one of the worst films that. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. There's some good stuff happening here. Like I said, my brain doesn't work the best. Else go.
I'll jump in. For me, I loved the fight in Omnipotent City. I really liked that we got to see the Thors, the Valkyrie, and Korg all fighting together. We got a little bit of that, of course, in the village with when the fight against the shadow creatures, but I really liked the fight there. I liked that we kind of got to see more of what Jane is doing with Mjolnir, and the idea of like, we saw this in the trailers, but the idea that she can actually like break apart Mjolnir as like a shotgun and then pull it back together. And so like, that was super cool. But yeah, so that in terms of like specific scenes, that was probably my favorite. And then as Travis says in chat, jealous girlfriend Stormbreaker. I loved the personification of Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. I love that that's continued. We got a lot of that in Thor Ragnarok. And so I was really happy that that continued. And it was like cranked up to 11. So great job, Taika.
Always does a great job. I do also like Korg's boyfriend at the end, Dwayne.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely went like super loud in the theater one. This is definitely I don't know. Yeah, the action sequences were great. For sure. I liked the Korg storytelling, like bits throughout the quick summary. Like, hey, just gonna get caught up here, kind of. I was really hoping at the beginning though that like when he introduced Thor, like he gives 3 titles for him. I wish it would have just kept going, and someone stopped him and was like, "Can you get on with it?"
We got things to do, kid.
But yeah, I really did like seeing Valkyrie too, and And that we got that Sif is in fact still alive. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Confirmation that she's still hanging
Yeah.
out doing
Yep.
stuff.
Because like right away we saw everyone else, like Korg recap. These guys, everyone else is dead. um, I I kind of like where they're like that they did the play thing again. We still got the same play
Mhm.
people, um, and the weird cameos. Who is that? Matt Damon.
Yep.
Janine, what was your favorite part?
I don't know if I have like one specific part. Like I also really enjoyed Jealous Girlfriend Stormbreaker. It's it's so good. I don't know, just the overall ridiculousness. Like everything was over the top, but it never really felt like too much. It was good.
Mhm.
I laughed out loud so many times, and it's been a while since a movie has made me actually laugh that hard.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely agree. And Chat Chunk says my favorite was Thor with the Guardians, where he's saying goodbye to Star Lord and making up the really drawn out handshake. That was another one that I feel like there's got to be a whole lot of other cuts of that. Like that's
Also,
the type of thing that's like there's like 20 minutes of just them doing
next
handshakes.
time I see y'all in person, I expect you to know it.
The snake.
It's like handshake, human handshake to the Asgard. So good.
It's funny. Travis and I, we do the one finger high five like all the time. And then we saw that and we were like,
The Asgard 1-5. Or what was it? Is that what he says? Or no,
I think so.
Asgard 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
Asgard High 1.
So other end, least favorite part. I'll go. Mine's more of like a general thing, and that was that I wish we would have gotten a bit more Valkyrie. I really liked what we got from her, and I love the way that Tessa plays that role. And I kind of get that like bringing Jane Foster back probably meant that Valkyrie is not going to get as much like screen time. And kind of this also kind of goes for Korg, but I really wish we would have gotten to have seen a bit more of like what was going on with Valkyrie before Thor gets back. But with the pace that this movie goes, like I also don't know where that would have fit. But yeah.
I wish we would have had more Dr. Jane Foster too.
Mhm.
Like a little more of that scientific application. Because she's a genius. And like bringing that like the scientific application to the battles a little more, like developing
Mhm.
a strategy and like it's like, oh, if there's shadows, like why don't we pack lights or something? I would have liked that, like kind of like Thor just jumping in and her kind of coming up with a better plan.
Yeah. Or borrowing a book from Cyclops' powers, which is of course understanding angles and ricocheting things. And like ricocheting Mjolnir around objects and stuff. Is it necessary? No. But it would have been funny because science.
Right.
yeah, I would have liked more character development of any kind with Jane. She was very cool and badass, but felt pretty flat. And I just wanted more of a journey for her.
Yeah. And we'll like segue straight into that or from that into our next questions. And kind of if you want to stay there for a second, but or stay in that thought for a second of how did y'all feel about the Thors in specific as we kind of look through the major characters, and specifically how did you feel about Jane Foster becoming the mighty Thor?
I was for it. Ever since that's been announced, I was psyched and stoked. Um, I felt like they kind of brushed by it a little bit. But I'm also kind of happy they didn't over explain it.
I'm definitely with Shanine. Of as a fan, I think one of my least favorite parts was I feel like we didn't get enough of like Jane being the mighty Thor.
Yeah.
Like it's implied that she's been doing this for quite some time while Thor's been gone, but we really don't get any reference to like her getting the or using the powers. We don't even necessarily get an answer for why she's worthy, other than that Thor made Mjolnir promise that Mjolnir would take care of her. Um, but we don't necessarily get like an explanation of part of what makes her worthy is that she's willing to save people even at the cost of her own life in the comics. That's kind of a degree of it is that, um, and that's part of why Mjolnir goes to her. But we don't really get that to the same degree really until the end. But
But I
that
feel
was
like
kind of
explaining worthiness is tough.
yeah,
Because then you'd also have to try to explain like why, like if you apply those exact words and choices, you have to explain why none of the other heroes are worthy.
oh yeah. But
And I
I
don't
will
want
say
that.
my favorite part of that is that the implication here is the only reason Thor can't use Mjolnir is because he never thought to put it together. That like this is like Mjolnir can just assemble itself, and so he just never thought to go back and pick it up. And all of this time, of course, because he's dealing with not like feeling like he isn't worthy, and so he just doesn't even try. And then presumably, since Thor like compared to the comics where Thor is not worthy, and that's why Mjolnir gets left on the moon. In this one, he just doesn't try to pick it up, and so I thought that that was a very cool like not that's not like told to us, but like that's kind of the implication of what's going on there. Is that he just never tried because he never thought he was worthy. But
I also felt like they trivialized their breakup a little bit. It wasn't like they rom-commed their breakup, I guess I should say. Um, it was just like, oh, things were going great until
so we started thinking about the future,
yeah,
and
until
then
they
they
got
didn't
too
go so
intimate,
great.
and then they weren't so great. It's like there's a lot that happened within their relationship, at least with the first two Thor movies, prior to Ragnarok, because then we alluded that they had broken up. But I mean, like you know, like Thor was dealing with a lot that would have started pushing her away, which made sense.
Mhm.
But I guess it made like their reunion a lot like they didn't have to force the reunion much. It's just like, oh, let me be honest now, real quick honesty, reestablish the relationship, move on. So I get why they did it, but
Shanine, any other thoughts on Thor or Mighty Thor?
Not really. I don't know. I was thinking about Thor's first time seeing Mighty Thor and just like the humor of that moment being like, hey, you're wearing my outfit. And I don't know. It's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
That was the tone for the whole thing. So I wasn't taking any of it too seriously. And it was just funny.
Yeah.
like how he brought his helmet too.
Yeah, he made the helmet bigger.
Yep.
Like, yeah. Yes.
Very Thor. Very self-conscious about his identity.
And Janine, what you just said makes me think: does the magic of being like Thor determine what your outfit looks like? Because like there's like certain motifs obviously that exist in all of the Thor costumes, and so like is that like with whoever be so worthy will have the powers of Thor? Is that just part of you will look kind of like this, or like, or are they over here like able to be like Thor's like, oh, I want to be blue today? Like, do they get to make that choice? I'm curious now. How does the metaphysics of this work? With that, let's get to our villain of Christian Bale's Gore, the God Butcher. How did y'all feel about the villain, and what did you think of Christian's performance? Sheen, do you want to start us off?
So watching the trailers for this movie, I had a very like solid idea of what the tone was going to be. And then we get into the movie and have that opening scene. And I was like, what is happening right now? This is so serious. But
At first, I thought I was in the wrong theater. Not gonna lie, it's like
I probably would have thought so too if I hadn't seen the memes of Christian Bale as Gore already. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even know he was in the movie until I saw the memes. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think he's a pretty good villain. He had good motivation. Your entire people dying, finally reaching your God, and him being like, I can get new people. I don't know. This leads me to, I guess, one of my qualms as well, which I don't know, coming out of the movie, I was okay with it. And then the more I thought about it over the weekend and talked with people, especially shout out on Twitter to, I don't know how to say this, but at Sola Nesei 555. I didn't say it right, but shout out to you. Just that, like, having a God butcher is like, that could be a really interesting theme to explore. And it wasn't super explored as much as it could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll kind of go and basically just echo a lot of what you said. I love Christian Bale's performance. Like, I feel like he's out here acting his heart out. I think the majority of the actors in like most MCU's films are amazing, and like shout out to like the cast for this as a whole. But like, I feel like Christian Bale's out here acting his heart out as Gore. And like to what you were saying earlier, like the idea of like going into it not knowing a lot about Gore, I was like, okay, well, his daughter dies because the gods don't help him, and then it seems like a big jump to get to I want to kill all the gods. That seems like a big jump in logic and motivation, but then like we get that scene with him and like I said, I think it's Rapu, and like that very much like very quickly contextualizes where this like conflict actually is for him. And again, his acting through all of that was amazing. I do think that this kind of will fall into some of the phase 4 problems with us not really knowing what we're building towards. Like Gore dying at the end of this, I think is one of the biggest wasted potentials of that, like that we've had in a long time for a villain. Like obviously that's kind of been one of the tropes of the MCU throughout a lot of its films is that they introduce a villain and then they die in that movie and then they're not even around anymore. But I really feel like Gore was or is underutilized because he doesn't make it out of the movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, I wish we would have gotten more. Like they establish, in my opinion, like strong motivation, strong, with a corrupted magical blade and everything. But then, like the way he's like his progression is introduced is just through these quick glimpse at these distress calls coming in, and then we really don't see him until he's actually full on attacking New Asgard. Like, I wish we would have saw a little more of him, like his method, his approach, like instead of like we just get these random glimpses. Oh, they get to the Shadow Realm. Oh, here's his plan. Oh, this is why he's going after the Asgardian gods.
Yeah. I mean, this is the type of character that I really think, just like looking at the previous movies, I think if Gore would have been teased in the Eternals, like if that would have been a post-credit scene for the Eternals, is Gore showing up, like even without getting his backstory, but just having it be Christian Bale with a Necrosword, like I think that would have done a lot for this character to elevate like that other people are aware of this. Like, 'cause this would be something the Celestials would be worried about, like if there's something like this was happening. And so I think that that would have been very interesting. It would have been great for the world building of this to just set him up a little bit earlier. Again, because it just seems like this is such a big deal to a whole lot of planets, and just kind of gets wrapped up. What did y'all think of the other gods that we see, like Bao, god of buns?
So ridiculous.
It's
Oh,
the god I
man.
worship.
I can't wait to go back. I want to see like a frame by frame of this Omnipotent City, because there's Omnipotence City. There we go. Because there's so many like references that there have to be in the background and stuff. I love Korg's god that sits on a Game of Thrones style throne of scissors as like a throwback to the Thor Ragnarok line. Like, I just love that. I just like loved how over the top all of that was.
Yeah, there's like, I'm intrigued. Like I think that was like one of the things that wasn't explored as well as it could be either. Like there's obviously some great characters, and I wish like they would have like pulled like a random one that would have joined them or assisted them, after his speech there or whatever, but everyone just listens to Zeus. Why is Zeus the like Lord of
Why
this
is
all?
Zeus in charge?
Why is Zeus in charge? Who thought this was a good idea? I do also like the I do like the humor in that scene in general though. Like, okay, maybe he's an asshole. No, just it's like, oh, maybe he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
Then the Don't Meet Your Heroes, but it's like, and next we'll be discussing
Oh,
God with the most humans or
yeah. Most sacrifices
Places.
are like, it's like, oh man, we're starting off like in a bad place. Then, as our two major side characters, what did y'all think of Valkyrie and Korg throughout the film?
we know I'm always gonna be a fan of Korg. That's Taika's true thumb on this movie, or the Thor series so far. It's just Korg, because it is Taika, but
Yeah. Korg is hilarious. I really enjoyed Valkyrie and like Valkyrie and Jane's relationship. More of that would have been cool too. I kept trying to figure out if there was a deeper meaning to Valkyrie wearing a Phantom of the Opera shirt,
Yes.
and I couldn't figure it out, but I appreciated it.
Yeah, I liked that it was there. As I said at the top, like one of my least favorite parts is that we don't get enough Valkyrie in this. And like, I love the parts that we get of her. I just wish we could have gotten more. And then, like, as you just said, Shanine, I would have loved to have seen Valkyrie and Mighty Thor. Like, what have they been up to? Like, because like Valkyrie knows what's going on with Jane. She knows like about the cancer, and that Mjolnir is like healing her, but only when she's like Thored up. And so, like, I really would like. I hope that we get like deleted scenes of that or something. I know Taika has said he doesn't want to release the Waititi cut of the other 2 hours of footage that they have for this movie.
I want all
like,
of it though. Like
yeah,
I do want a full cut, like with the removed roles and things like that, and a little more.
Yeah, I want it. Like if we could get a extended cut of a bad movie like Justice League, like give me an extended cut of an actual good movie.
I like with the Snyder cut, like the Snyder cut wasn't was expected to redeem the failure of the movie, but it didn't. It's like, oh no, it's just longer badness.
In chat, Travis says, "For me, the big problem with this film is that was a great comedy, but a bad Marvel film. Taika made a Taika film, but didn't really focus on furthering the Marvel plot beyond using the movie canon to write out old characters. When Thor sees Jane for the first time and mentions stealing his look, is how I felt about this film. this type of film was Jane taking the Thor look without being the progressed, mature Thor that we know him. Still likable, but likely a one-off. I can definitely get that. And I think that some of that is the again, kind of the phase 4 problem of what are we building towards? Like, without us like knowing that Thanos is coming, like what are we really building towards? Like it could be Secret Wars, it could be Kangs, like that all seems reasonable, but without us like really knowing what we're actually building towards.
Yeah, they have a lot that they can do now, like based on like even this one, like you can set up a God War
Mm-hmm.
because of how our post credit scene and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. And maybe some of those things that are problem like within that would be within a extended cut, like
Mm-hmm.
things he originally wanted to do, but due to time constraints. And he did a great job cutting this down the way he did, in my opinion. But it was just lacking in certain areas.
Mm-hmm. To use my book club scale, this movie felt a third too short. But I did like that it zoomed and it left me wanting more. Like, I do think that that's something that's like a benefit there. Like, again, like looking at this idea of like Valkyrie and Corrigan specific too, of like, I would have loved for us to have gotten more for them, but I don't really know where that would have fit. Like, we get their scene on the boat, and that's really the only, like, in terms of them together, that's really the only scene that we get of their own dialogue. But even in terms of them really interacting with other people, we don't really get a ton of that. But again, I don't really know how that would have connected it with this being Thor and Mighty Thor. But
After this, I just expect to see Valkyrie in more things.
that's my hope.
I was like, yeah, we'll just get more Valkyrie.
She's kind of in the same boat that to tie in with our Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness spoiler cast. The same boat I'm in it with Wong, of like, let Wong be in more things. Like, he was in Shang-Chi. Like, let him be in everything. Like, and same with Valkyrie. Like, have people go visit New Asgard, talk to her, show the commercials that they make and other properties. Like, I just want to see Valkyrie in everything.
Right?
Travis says, didn't Valkyrie say she would likely never fight again? I do not know. I know she was really messed up, but I don't know if that was said. Great question. And so with this, Chris, you referenced it earlier, we get the introduction to the wider mythology, specifically our like Greek mythology. So with likely Hercules coming to kill or attempt to kill Thor. What do you think this will lead to? Do you think this will be Thor 5? Will be Thor versus Hercules? What do y'all think?
I was just really excited to finally know what a post-credit scene was referencing. I'm like, I know who this is. Not just because of Greek mythology, because I also know he's in Marvel Comics. It was a big moment for me.
Also, don't put Earth gods in charge of anything.
I've learned anything from sci-fi, it's that humans are always the worst. So,
and their gods are even going to be worse for the most part.
yeah, except for one, but
he's not referenced. So
yeah. For me, I'm really excited about this. I when I got into reading comics, Ares was a prominent part of like Avengers and Dark Avengers, and so I'm kind of excited to see where this is going to shape up with us getting more than just Hercules. Hercules specifically as a character, I don't know a lot of from the comics. But like I said, Ares kind of has a soft spot for me. And so I'm kind of hoping that we get to see him show up. Like Hercules gets wrecked by Thor and then has to go get Big Uncle to come and help, kind of thing. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping for there. But
how does
we'll
Valhalla work?
How does Valhalla
like is
work?
this a realm? like I understand the idea, like the afterlife of Valhalla, but the fact that we got to see it, I'm just like, so is this a separate realm, or what are the implications of you showing us Valhalla? Are there other afterlives?
But we know that from, I forget what do they call them in Moon Knight? Intersectional planes
Yeah,
of consciousness, something like that. They said that there's a bunch of those, and so
but like now I'm just like, what are the implications? Like, how does that work? So like, does that mean you could pretty much, like, with probably a few exceptions, does that mean you can bring anyone back?
yeah.
If you can cross those realms, those intersectional. It hurts my brain.
Yeah, and let's kind of go. We can build off of that. After, like, out of this movie, what do y'all hope, or how do you hope this movie will affect future MCU projects? Like, what are your expectations? Like, again, we get introduction to this wider mythology. We get an introduction to a lot of other stuff. Like, um, I know for me, now that we've seen Jane Foster as Mighty Thor, I want Jane Foster as a Valkyrie. Like, let's just keep moving her through, get her to the next role that she's in the comics, bring her back to life. Like, let's do
Like
this.
that's what I mean. Like that's a big implication. Drive showing us this Valhalla realm, and like we already talked about it, but like a full on like teleporting into Valhalla essentially, and then moving through. I'm like, there's something's gonna. You got to. They better do something with that. That's all I know.
Shani, any thoughts from you? What do you want to see in the future?
I don't know. I never know what to expect.
Expect to be surprised, and then you can be like, I called it.
I'm curious where we're going with the screaming goats. Will we see them again?
Will they get turned into meat by the next director if it's not Taika? Of like, I need to answer, like, I need to explain what happens. But in chat, Travis says, with the intro of Hercules, I can see this leading into West Coast Avengers. With kind of, because also Moon Knight is a West Coast Avenger, and so I feel like that there's so much going on in the MCU right now with them like building teams, because like this is kind of where we end up with Love too, and so of her being like essentially a young Avenger, to take that team, and we're very much building that young Avengers crew as well. We're building Thunderbolts, we're building like all these kind of teams, and it's like I'm hoping that maybe soon we get some sort of announcements, like, and this kind of fits into that like future planning thing of like, well, what we're building to is actually getting to see these characters team up. Even if it's not always going to be an Avengers level threat, like we're going to get some sort of actual team ups happening now that we're getting this wider array.
Just some fun crossovers, even.
Yeah.
You know, like with them pushing Disney Plus a little more and like doing a little more experimentation there. Even I one of my favorite thing about the MCU for the most part is how they do that crossover thing, just like a quick interaction even, and it just leaves you wanting more of that character. Like we got a little Darcy in here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough, but I think she deserves her own series. Along with Agent. Oh shoot.
Jim Halpert.
Yes. But I don't know.
Randall Park.
Yeah. What's his? Is that the agent's name? No.
No, that's his real name.
Yeah. What's his name in MCU? That's where my brain's fried.
Jimmy Woo.
Woo, yeah, Agent Woo. I just want more of all these awesome side characters. They like any more. That's why I go to why I watch MCU stuff. Is for the side characters.
So let's get into our next question. This is, I believe, the halfway point through phase 4. I say not confidently. It is the 6th movie. Maybe it's a halfway point through what we know about. Maybe that's what it is. And so our 6th movie in phase 4, with Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange. How does this stack up for you against the other phase 4 movies? If you had to power rank them, obviously we'll do our official rankings in another indeterminate time period, since this is the indeterminate time period of Marvel. But how does this stack up for you against the other MCU phase 4 movies?
I mean, with some notable outliers, I have been largely disappointed by our recent MCU things. So this was something completely different and really enjoyable. So I was real hyped about it. Like, I don't have to walk out of the movie theater mad.
I think this, like, I don't really want to rank because it was definitely very enjoyable. It was a great movie. But yeah, it's hard to rank them because they all have their own kind of implications. Um, at least, what we should say, between Spider-Man and Thor. I mean, actually, no, like they all kind of imply a different direction, and I'm not sure how they're gonna bring everything together. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what how I'd rank them necessarily, because they're kind of all pulling the MCU in a different way. Especially this, we have gods now. What? Yeah, we can kill them.
I don't think I could rank them very easily.
Yeah, mine was very easy to do. And like I said, I don't want to go through the whole. I mean, I put mine on Twitter or whatever, so it's not like mine's hidden. But like, with us eventually doing our phase 4 tier list, I do kind of want us to hold some mystery there. But I do think that I think with us doing spoiler casts from most, if not all of these, I don't think we did Eternals, but
Still haven't seen it.
yeah,
It's fine.
I enjoyed it. This is a very strong number 2 in phase 4 for me, right behind Spider-Man. I really liked this film. I think that it's the type of movie that, like, I get all the criticism that people have had for it, but man, I laughed so much during this movie. And honestly, that's like, I'm just hyped about that. Like, I definitely wish that it did more for the future of the MCU and tied in differently, stuff like that, as we've discussed throughout this cast. But man, I enjoyed this movie so much. And especially with like Thor Ragnarok being like my favorite like individual character MCU movie. I'm just very happy that like I came out of this one still being like, hey, I can't wait to go watch this again. Thank you, Taika. And so I really enjoyed this and I can't wait to go back. Like, I see this kind of falling into the same category as Ragnarok for me, where it's just like, you know what? I want to just put something on that's light and fun. And I'm going to go rewatch Ragnarok for the 10th time, like that kind of thing. So I could definitely see this being in that same boat.
Well, now you have to replace Ragnarok because you get a recap of Ragnarok like right there at the beginning.
This is true. I don't even need to watch Ragnarok anymore. I can see their Depending like low budget stage production of Ragnarok, and
depending on your toleration for what's her face,
Melissa
McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy. I loved that. That made me so happy.
She irritates me sometimes, but I did enjoy it first, but I'm not sure I could watch it again. Like, I'm not sure I'll enjoy it as much the second time, but I do like that Sam Neill is still Odin, playing Odin. Like, is that Sam Neill?
Yeah, I just love all of that. I love the recaps. I would watch a movie that is those like actors playing like through the movies. I would watch that. But let's talk about spiritual themes. Is there anything from the film that stood out to you?
I mean, like in general, I do like. It's like, I mean, it relates to faith in a sense. Like the entire villain arc in this, I think, is something to pay attention to. As people of faith, just because, like, yeah, it's like, uh, well, I mean, or like that power struggle of being like their god is essentially just like, oh, they don't view you as anything important, or at least these gods don't. Sorry, I'm not implying that about.
About capital
It's
G.
hard. There's a lot of gods, you know. Yeah, but and I think also, like, granted, within their faith, they obviously had a strong attachment to that god, and then weren't viewed highly in its eyes. But I think it also, like, it's a good way to look at kind of how we portray our god, um, too. And like we are that representation for him, and because people can look at the Bible too in the Old Testament and be like, oh yeah, no, it's just like all the others there. Look at, just looking at us as playthings. There'll be more. Wipe out an entire civilization.
Yeah, that's what stuck out to me too. Just that whole struggle with doubt and loss of faith. Like, what is the point of God if he is not going to care or do anything? And
Especially when he's like, he's right there in front of you. Like in this
yeah,
case, it's just like,
yeah, where Gore actually he sees and knows for certain that he is not cared about at all. Um, and just I don't know what despair looks like after having to face that.
Love what y'all had to say there. That was the big one that stood out to me as well. I don't specifically have anything else to add other than what y'all said, but I think that was a cool one. Another one that kind of struck me, and this is kind of a follow up to Ragnarok, or even like Endgame, but the idea of like, what is your identity, or where does your identity come from? Like we get the line in Thor Ragnarok where Korg very much just like explains the plot to Thor, of like what he's dealing with the loss of Mjolnir, and kind of that idea of like where that idea of where does your identity come from? Is he Thor, god of hammers, or Thor, god of thunder? Um, and I feel like that's something that like that theme kind of continues of like, are you defined by, for Gore, are you defined by your relationship to this one god? Are you then for Thor, are you defined with your connection to like to Ragnarok? I guess I mean, you know, to Asgard, which has been Ragnarok, or New Asgard, or like where does he defining himself from? And we get that a bit with his Guardians of the Galaxy side at the beginning of the movie. And so I think that was another big one that jumped out to me.
it's like one of the reasons why I love Korg as a character is he gets these really poignant lines, but he always, like, it's always delivered in this amazingly humorous way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that what he just said says so much, but just because of who's delivering it and kind of the nature of the situation. Like even in Ragnarok, he has that line. It's like, sounds like you had a very intimate
Relationship with your hammer.
with this hammer. So he knows all about Mjolnir. It's like his first interaction with Thor.
We have our final thoughts coming up. Emma obviously wasn't able to be here with us, but she did give us a final thought. So she said, better than 2, not quite as good as 3. Some of the humor fell short too. Not the best MCU movie, but isn't the worst by far. B minus to C plus grade. Um, I didn't think I needed Thor leading an army of children into battle until now. Slightly disappointed overall, but not majorly. One of the better Phase 4 movies. You can't go wrong with Taika as director. So, Janine, final thoughts.
A few gripes, but overall, very enjoyable and very hilarious.
Better horror movie than still a better horror movie. No, I'm just must watch. Not sure. Still not sure how it necessarily fits in with the rest of the MCU at this point, but that's. I also do enjoy a good standalone movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as I said throughout, this movie left me wishing it was longer, which I think is probably one of the biggest praises that you can give to a creative work. Um, it left me wishing that there was another 30 minutes or something. And so I really liked this a lot. Again, it doesn't surpass Thor Ragnarok for me, but it definitely comes close enough. And so I definitely really enjoyed it and highly recommend. So,
yeah, maybe it should have been a Disney Plus series instead of a movie.
You know what? We're coming back to a question after the final thoughts. So, okay. Adding to the show notes. So one of the things that I think we discussed this in some of our previous spoiler casts, but one of the things that has come up as a criticism for Phase 4 is that it feels like some of the things that are shows should have been movies, and some of the things that are movies should have been shows. So with that, like, again, kind of as almost as like a meme at this point. But with that, how, like, would you have wanted this to have been broken out into the Disney Plus treatment?
I think I would have. Yeah, but I mean, like, I get it. Like, Thor is kind of the big name. It's harder to do a dedicated extended series like that for the big names. Those are the movie names, and I think that's kind of their decision making process. Whereas like Disney Plus is just there to kind of introduce new characters or give more development to the smaller characters.
Yeah, I mean, knowing how Taika does TV shows, like with What We Do in the Shadows and stuff, I feel like this could have been a really good TV show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I would not have wanted Thor: Love and Thunder to have been a TV show, but I would have loved a like spinoff that takes place at the beginning of this, like as
A little
referenced
supplemental
earlier.
piece.
Yeah, like give us the Mighty Thor on Disney Plus, which is the month or however long that Jane is Mighty Thor leading into this movie. Like, give us that extra side, give us some more kind of with that, have it not even be about Chris Hemsworth's Thor, have it be as we got Kal-El Skywalker saying they should have done 2 films with Gore, have it be a like parallel story between Mighty Thor and Gore, and like kind of doing the leading into the events of this movie. I think that would have been awesome.
That would have been really good, actually, to introduce Gore and them, and kind of like even like with sub pieces like about, and then like pretty much then this movie just becomes like you cut out kind of that opening and Jane's parts, and then we go right into Thor leaving the Guardians, and I don't know. Then you get to expound more on like the character, the relationship building, maybe.
Mhm.
There's a lot you could have done, but
Let's talk announcements. Anybody planning to stream this week?
With my work schedule changing, I am rethinking my stream schedule. So stay tuned. TBD.
I'm always just in flux.
Yeah.
It's also
I mean,
summer, so probably
yeah.
not.
I'll be trying to stream some this weekend. I'm not sure what day exactly. I'm going to be playing some Magic with friends, and so I don't know if that's happening Friday or Saturday, and so it'll kind of just depend. And so we'll see what exactly is the plan there. And then other big announcement on July 28th, we are doing our book club for Secret Identity. So I ordered mine today, supposed to be here tomorrow, and so I'll finally get started now that we're halfway through the month. And then other big announcement, as I mentioned during the cast, this is the our indeterminate time periods theme is Marvel. And so once we can all be together, we are going to be starting our MCU tier list, where each week we'll take a look at a different phase of the MCU and discuss where it kind of lands on a tier list and do a ranking and continue that. We've already done tier lists for all the Pixar movies as well as the 20 books we had read for book club. And so we'll be starting that and kind of building every week on top of that. But yeah, we will probably, it'll just be whenever we can all be here. That is what we will be talking through. And so with that, let's get into our outro and then get ready for a post-show chat. We are First Geek 411. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, join our Discord server, shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out that Redbubble store for the merch. Watch live 6:45 Mountain Time on Twitch and be part of the post-show chats. Then find the video on our YouTube where you can like, comment, and subscribe. And then if you want to connect with us personally, you can do that through our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittle.
I'm the Hoot and Howl on Twitter and Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES on Instagram.
I'm not so foreign.
It's been a great week.
Travel.
Read a book.
I love you.